Staying active is a vital part of living well. For many people with arthritis, Nordic walking can be a safe and fun way to get fit, stay active, and retain your mobility. Nordic poles engage your back and arms, turning walking into an all-body workout that's also safer and more stable. Nordic walking can help just about anyone, especially people with issues such as spinal stenosis, osteoarthritis of the knees, hips, or ankles, or people preparing for or recovering from joint replacement surgery. Like ski poles, you use Nordic poles as a pair to provide balanced support for your stride. Some poles have features that make them better for people with arthritis. Look for a rubber tip large enough to provide support. You can put weight on it and use it on a variety of walking surfaces. A broad ergonomic grip that's easier to hold. And they should be adjustable to suit your height and walking pace. Look for a push-button adjustment that locks safely into place. Adjustable poles can be stored away when not in use. To fit your poles, stand tall with the poles upright and adjust their height so your elbows are at 90 degrees with your hands on the grips. Your shoulders should be level and your back straight. There are different techniques to use depending on your mobility. Beginners should try double poling. Place both poles in front of you and step through like a doorway. Then push off the ground with your arms and draw the poles forward to place the tips flat on the ground again. This works best with bell tips. These look like the tip on a cane and provide support for people who need more stability. More mobile people can use the alternating stride, where you reach and step forward with the opposite arm and leg. Push off with the trailing pole and bring it forward. Your arms stay bent at 90 degrees. This stride works with either bell tips or smaller traction tips, which look like little boots and are meant for stable walkers who want more of a workout. If you're not used to regular exercise, check with your healthcare provider before getting started to make sure Nordic walking is safe for you. You'll also want to wait for any joint flares to pass before starting a new activity. Start any physical activity by warming up first, then cool down afterwards. Stretching helps reduce your risk of injury. Start slow and gradually increase how far, how fast, and how often you walk as your body adjusts. Find a walking partner near your level or a walking class or track in your community. Walking with someone is more fun and will help keep you motivated. A step counter or app on your mobile device can help you keep track of how much you're walking. You want to see steady, gradual progress. Adults should aim for 20 minutes of aerobic activity every day, or 50 minutes 3 times a week. These are just guidelines though. Talk with your healthcare provider about your own goals. Nordic walking isn't for everyone, but it just might help you achieve greater mobility as you rediscover the joys of walking.
Dr. Taunton, I want to introduce Dr. Taunton formally. He is a world-renowned sports medicine doctor. He's the former chief medical officer of the 2010 Olympics. He's the co-founder, founder of the Vancouver Sun Run, the Vancouver Marathon, the Lionsgate Roadrunners. Has numerous awards. He's been inducted to the BC Sports Hall of Fame. He's run 60 marathons and 30 of them under 2 hours and 30 minutes, right, Dr. Taunton? And he's an avid pole walker, and he walks like 2 hours, 15 kilometers, and he's a testimonial for everyone for getting out there and doing some pole walking. And he will be discussing more about returning athletes to pole walking and for the benefits in general and for arthritis. And Dr. Taunton, excited to have you here with us.
Well,
and we'd like to hear your story.
Thank you very, very much. And as I mentioned, the big benefit comes from that increase in your exercise aerobic capacity by 30%. I've run in total 120,000 miles or 200,000 kilometers, and finished 63 marathons, ultra marathons, and so on. And now I put on pro bike races. But my life as a runner was always in a question, because I was born with a condition called spinal stenosis that some of you may have. And that is a narrowing of your spinal canal. So that puts compression on the nerves coming out of the lumbar spine, which supplies your quadricep, your hip, and down to your feet. The first thing that happened to me is I developed foot drops where I couldn't lift my feet up. And yet I continued to run. I saw my dad have 3 surgeries. I've had 7 major surgeries. And the last 2 surgeries occurred because a sidewalk collapsed from under me. I fell and got a massive fracture through the 3rd lumbar vertebrae, where I had, with the previous 5 surgeries, I'd had rods and screws holding me together. Then I got back to running again. And then when I had this fall, I got a massive fracture that completely wiped out all the control to my right leg and a good part of the control to the left. The vertebrae had completely collapsed on one side. And so I was at a 45-degree angle, had to have emergency surgery. And they had to cut a wedge out of the bone to straighten it out. And we had that surgery done. This is 3 years ago. And then we thought everything was fine. I'm getting ready. Obviously, I knew the rules. And with the spine surgical unit at Vancouver General, everybody, the very first day after your surgery, you wake up and the physios give you a pair of Nordic poles and you start walking with those poles immediately. So I knew the drill. I had walked a lot. When I was chief medical officer, and I'd been to 8 Olympics, and I was chief medical officer in Sydney and then Vancouver for 4.5 years. And during that period of time, I crashed on my bike because I raced a lot. And my daughter, who was a pro athlete for 10 years, she's an orthopedic surgeon now, but she had just come home from one of her pro tours and games. And she wanted to go for a ride. I'd run 2 hours that day. And Cheryl said, well, the moving truck is, because we were moving from Richmond to UBC, the moving truck is going to be late. So I've done my 2-hour run, and Kristen wanted to go for a ride. And so, but it just started to rain. And I said, I think I'm going to use my mountain bike. And Kristen said, Dad, you'll never keep up to me on my road bike. So I took the road bike. And I rode every day, and I rode over this section at number 6 down by where the tunnel, and you go over 6 railroad tracks. Did it every day, did it that night. The next morning it's greasy, and my wheels slip into the tracks. I get a massive fracture in my hip. I get 3 fractures in my hip. I break my helmet, and I get an injury to my elbow. I said, oh, I'll get home. And Kristen said, if you can get up and get your leg over onto the bike, I'll ride home with you. Well, I couldn't even stand up. And so I ended up having significant surgery to my hips, but I was still competing at that point. And so with my poles, I was able to get rehabilitated and get back to running again. And with my poles, as a competitive runner, I could use them to do speed work, hill work, anaerobic work, and tempo exercise. And I was able to maintain my fitness and then start running again and ran another marathon. But that really flared up this condition that I was born with. And I ended up getting through the Olympics with 12 nerve blocks because of the nerves, and I'd lost control of both feet. But we managed to that they said that I put on the best ever summer, winter, or Paralympic games, and they sent me to 24 different countries. So Cheryl and I, when the games were over, we went to Hawaii, and my team sent me the results. How many people did we see? We had 25,000 volunteers. What was the health of them? We had 10,000 media. What was the health of them? We had to look after 1.8 million spectators and so on. It's a huge job. And they had the Olympics wanted me to go to 24 different countries. Well, you're sitting a lot, and sitting is the worst for spine problems, as many of you have already know. And by the time I finished doing the 24 trip and flew around the world, I got home, and 2 days later was the first of my spinal surgery. So I went through the 5 spinal surgeries, walking on the poles initially until I could get back to speed walking and true running. But then I had this massive fracture occur, and the only way they could stabilize the fracture, because when I came back on the 5th day, I'm anxious to get out of there. I've had all my tests to prove that I was fit enough to be able to climb the 3 flights of stairs in our condo, and prove to them that with the poles and no control of my right leg, I could do it. And so they tried to put me into a deep chair, and I have to sit, as I am now, on a bar stool up high. This was a low chair and deep chair. And I said, I can't sit in that chair because I've just had this massive surgery. And they were using my bed to train nurses how to get people up, and with the physio, show them how to pole walk, just as we saw. And unfortunately, they could see that I was really having trouble. I couldn't speak. I was perspiring like mad. And they tried to hold me up, and my arms were perspiring so much that they dropped me into the chair. Now I've got a massive fracture at the level above, which is L2, and it hits my spinal cord. Now you're like Rick Hansen, in a wheelchair. And so I knew my clinical days of clinical practice were over. And we lived in this 3-level townhouse. So we moved out. My wife would leave every day and be gone for 12 hours looking after the grandchildren out in Taunton. So I said, we got to move out close to there. And so we built a house on the golf course at Taunton Springs. And as Christine has mentioned, at the beginning, I could walk 2 kilometers. Yesterday, to celebrate, and this is something that we have done with what my best friend that I have run 70,000 miles with. He's he's been an international runner. He's a judge. Now he's a lawyer again. And we have run 70,000 miles together. Now we walk. And we do this for a celebration for the Remembrance Day. And yesterday we walked 20 kilometers, 3 hours and 8 minutes. I've got no balance on my right side. I've got very little strength on the right side, but with those poles, I can walk at a pretty reasonable pace And everybody now in Tawasin knows there's Dr. Jack out walking every day on his poles. No balance, the poles keep me upright. So that when individuals tell me they've got spinal stenosis and they haven't had surgery yet, get poles. If you've had surgery, get poles. And we use it now for pre and post-op hip and knee surgery to prepare you, to get you fitter before you have your surgery, and to allow you to unload that hip that's been replaced, because it takes the force away from that replaced hip. And eventually you'll be able to get rid of the poles once you're able to walk and be more comfortable, your balance is better, and your strength is better. They're excellent for people that have osteoarthritis of their knee and their hip or ankle. We use them a lot for individuals that have had come off the ski mountain and have had a knee ligament injury, torn their anterior cruciate or medial collateral ligament, torn a meniscus, had an ankle fracture or a ligament injury. And we put people, even the best athletes, on poles. It allows them to increase their fitness requirement. And for me, I get tested because I've had open heart surgery because I was born with no right coronary arteries, despite the fact I did all this running. And so I'm tested regularly. So they know exactly what my aerobic capacity was and what my maximum heart rate was before all the spine issues and poles. And they know, and I just got tested 2 weeks ago, and I've been able to increase my aerobic capacity just to challenge my body even more. 16 months ago, I was in a restaurant chewing on a piece of bread that's on the table, hard crust, cracked a tooth. My dentist couldn't repair it. The oral surgeon thought he could. He goes to pull it out. And I said, shouldn't I be on antibiotic coverage? We would always do that for somebody that's got all this hardware in me, because in my case, when I had the second fracture, I have 2 3-foot rods in my spine and 36 3-inch screws in my spine. And obviously I don't want to fall because I could fracture or pull out those screws, and I don't want to go through any more surgery. But even with that, and I had to start over, and that surgery was 3 years ago, and now I average 15 kilometers, a day.
Mhm.
And it is tremendous for those that have poor balance. And it's not just seniors that lose balance and have falls, but if you're diabetic, you can develop a peripheral neuropathy so that you lose sensation in your feet, and other conditions can do the same thing, and you lose your balance. Well, I have no balance on my right side, and so I am totally dependent on my poles. The other day, it was so incredibly windy out here. The wind would hit my right leg because it's weak and whips it over to the other side, and I'm about to fall, but my poles hold me up. Traditional poles look like, and you can see it, they're in sections. So it makes it so this all telescopes together. You've got a lock bar that locks that segment in. You can fold it all the way up, and it's great for travel, and you can put it up where your suitcase is. And you can see the tips that I have wide, because you want a good purchase, particularly if it's slippery. And they showed in that video it was snowing. You don't want one of the little pole adapters that they have on many of the poles. You want the wide ones. And if you can't find the wide ones, Phil Moore has them at Lady Sport. And so I've had my own, because of Mandy, I've had my own bioengineer. And so then they went to a stronger material. This, you can twist it and unload it, and it has the pins. With this, as I stand up, you can see the height of the poles as I'm standing. So it's just above my iliac crest. Now, the latest ones, this is a fiber carbon, which is one piece. The flight attendants are very good, and they'll put these still in the carry-on up above, and you can see, you know, the height. And I have never broken these poles here. And again, they've got the wide tip on the base. Eventually, they're going to wear off, and I drag my right leg. And so it's the right side that wears out. And Phil just came over and brought me another set of poles. So if you've had a ligament injury, you twisted your knee or twisted your ankle, the poles are tremendous. They're so important for balance and fall prevention. While you're working on your strength, working with your physiotherapist on your strength and your core and your side leg lifting, hip strength. And so for anybody that gets general weakness, and we're seeing this obviously with people coming out of hospital with COVID, they've lost their balance because it affects the brain, it affects their lung, and it affects their heart. And they have difficulty climbing stairs, even top athletes. Their energy, you know, is poor, and their balance is terrible. They're much like people that, in fact, that have Parkinson's or have had a concussion. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody is weak coming out of hospital because they've had cancer or they've had surgery, use the poles. And everybody in our neighborhood here in this golf course that has any ambulation issue, I get them into poles. As my swan song from leaving our clinic out at UBC, where Doug Clement and I co-founded it, the first sports medicine clinic in the country 41 years ago. And now we've just gone into a new building, and I left them $3.5 million of improvement. I put a track on the roof, so it's a good surface and they can use it for rehabilitation and they can practice their gait. And this could be anybody with a neurologic problem or coming back from an injury. I got imaging equipment to look at their bone density. If you've had cancer, the chemotherapy, your bones get softer. I've got osteoporosis. Part of it is I inherited it. I for some reason, in terms of the genetics, I ended up with a heart that only had blood vessels on one side. I was born with spinal stenosis. When I was 6, I had polio, and I really lost, and I really needed the poles back then. And I couldn't do any sports until I was 15. Then I went crazy. And at Simon Fraser, I played football, soccer, and ran. And then I started the only running club in the country because we didn't have one, and started the marathon and so on. And the poles would have been so useful then. And at the clinic, I gave my partner $1 million gym for patients with cancer and exercise, particularly if the individual's having chemotherapy. And the chemo makes your bones thin, so hence I gave him a unit called the DEXA to measure your bone density, or people that do too much exercise, their bones get thin. Well, I've got osteoporosis. So if I have patients with osteoporosis and I'm on one of the latest agents for it called Prolia, but the big problem with osteoporosis is you can get fractures in your hip, your thigh bone, your lower legs. And with the poles, it unloads the amount of force. So it allows, the bone needs some impact. So the poles allow you to exercise, but safely, so the bones don't break. And I've got marked osteoporosis and had a number of fractures. I had 4 pelvic fractures as a distance runner before we did the research to show we thought only women got osteoporosis and stress fractures from running. Well, in the studies that we did, we showed that out of our running club, those that ran 80 and 90 miles a week like I did, 2 things happened. We ended up getting stress fractures, we got thin bone, and our hormone level, just like the females, their hormone level drops and their periods stop. And males the same, testosterone. So when I went through these 2 huge fractures within 5 days, I went into hormonal failure. Every day I have to give myself growth hormone. I get every 6 months osteoporosis. I have to be on calcium and vitamin D, and I have to be on my poles every day because I have had multiple fractures since then. And so osteoporosis is one, the poles are outstanding. The last $1 million I raised, which was about 4 or 5 months ago, and it's for, we call it our brain wellness program. These 2 gyms are in the Alan McGavin Sports Medicine Center out at UBC, and it is now right in front of the ice hockey rinks at the corner of Westbrook Mall and Thunderbird. And I gave them $3.5 million, and Chan Gun, that we did a lot of, he was the first doctor to come to Canada to do acupuncture. And then we did IMS. If you've got chronic muscle pain, intermuscular stimulation works well. And because we created every month a new group of physiotherapists trained on how to do this, he said, "You're creating my disciples." He gave us $5 million, and that's how we built the new clinic. And so I created a program because I lost my father. He managed to survive the war. His dad was killed in the last month of the war, in the first war. And my dad ended up having Alzheimer's when he was 60. 6 months later, he couldn't feed himself. He didn't know who he was. He needed 100% care. So I was worried about those and what can we do to help them? So we've created a program for people with Parkinson's, MS, Alzheimer's, mood disorders, depression, anxiety, and for athletes that have chronic symptoms from concussion. And we use exercise, mindfulness, and music. And many of them exercise with poles. Because if with Parkinson's particularly, and MS, but particularly Parkinson's, you lose an area in the brain that's attacked, unfortunately, by the COVID virus, and it prevents motor control. They can't do symmetrical movement. So we put them on boxing. And if you look at Michael J. Fox, who has Parkinson's, he's developed a program, a boxing program for Parkinson's. So we use that for Parkinson's, and they get very ataxic gait and they fall. Well, 3 doors up from where we live, this young fellow is a very prominent engineer. and had an engineering company. And before he was 60, he had to retire. And they told him, well, you can't, he was a good cyclist and a golfer. They said, well, we don't have anything to offer you. So he saw me walking on poles. I said, Glenn, what's your problem? I said, to me, it looks like you've got Parkinson's. He said, yeah. And he said, I said, what do you do for exercise? I don't do anything. And I said, well, we've got a gym. And the first thing I'm going to get you, and I saw him today when I was out on my walk, and I said, Glenn, I'm going to talk about you today, because when he moved here a year ago, he could hardly walk 3 houses down to get his mail. You look at him now, and I said, Glenn, your gait is so much better. He says, Jack, my gait is normal. And because he walks every day, and he's got an attendant walking the dog beside him, and he walks with the poles. He is stronger. His upper body is stronger. It's affecting and helping his bones, which is not a part of Parkinson's, but he has excellent control. His gait is better, and he's not falling. And he is now, the family has just got him a trike, and he's going to try to get back to riding again, because his balance has improved with the poles themselves. And as I mentioned at the beginning, athletes that have had an injury, they've torn their anterior cruciate, they've had an ankle injury, they've had a stress fracture, and they want to get back. Well, I'm an athlete. I still consider myself an athlete, only I'm on poles, but I do benefit runs. We have the Coho run, which I ran every year, and that's to give funding for the salmon. And they wanted me to participate, so they created a start line out in front of my house here, put a red carpet out, and I walked, and they put me on the poster and everything, and that was 14 kilometers. 2 weeks ago, it was the New York Marathon, which I would have run, but it's now virtual. You can run, you just got to know the distance. So I walked a half marathon. And then yesterday, for the Remembrance Day, as I mentioned, I walked 20 kilometers, but average, I walk about 15 kilometers. But in that, 2 days a week, we've got some hills over here. Everybody thinks Taunton is flat, but there's some big hills over about 2 kilometers from here. And then 2 days a week, I pound up the hills on my poles. I can do speed work and tempo work. So it really challenges my aerobic and anaerobic power. Well, that's good for athletes. And this allows us to get these athletes back while the bone and the ligaments are getting strong enough to be able to take the pounding that we do. And as an international marathoner, I ran, as I mentioned, 80 to 90 miles a week. And with my good friend that walked with me yesterday, he was an international 800-meter runner, couldn't run anymore because of his foot. So he joined me in marathons. The two of us, and he's a judge and now back being a lawyer, we have run 70,000 miles together. Now he's walking because he can't run anymore. And so he drives out from West Vancouver, and we did our annual Remembrance Day to remember my grandfather, and Cheryl's uncle was the very first Canadian killed at Dieppe, leading the Canadian tank attack at Dieppe. So we're there remembering. But for us, the way we remember is we go for a walk. And so we walked for 3 hours and 8 minutes, and that came to 20 kilometers. So an athlete can use these. You can use it if you're feeling a little shaky in terms of your balance, or you're feeling weak, you've had the flu. Use the poles. If you're going to get your hip replaced, you want to be as strong as possible before you go in to have your hip replaced. So get out and walk on the poles. And then after surgery, this is an outstanding program to get you back. So many people have thin bones, and this is an excellent way to do that. So I think I've hopefully given you an idea of where the poles could fit into your system for exercise, or your family or your neighbors to suggest. And they're an outstanding way to get exercise. And for COVID, particularly this second wave, I tell everybody, be safe, be healthy, and the best way to improve your immune system is exercise, particularly with this second wave. And so everybody can exercise. They tell me, no, I can't exercise because I've got poor balance. That's garbage. I said that I have, a major challenge to my system. I had polio and I managed to overcome that. I ended up having a heart disease, a heart bypass in 5 weeks with an exercise program. I was chief medical officer for the Sydney Olympics, and need to be chief medical officers for the Olympics in Vancouver. When we went live and we put on 18 test events, world championships, 2 years out. Then the year of the games, we did 17. And then for my medical team, we were live for 100 days. And in 100 days, I got home for 9 hours in 100 days. And I had to keep fit. And there, my spine was giving me grief. So I had my poles. And I can always put little pins in those bottoms in the ice, and I could exercise every day to keep, because I had to keep fit. And I had to be there to climb hills, and people can fall down anywhere on a course. And so I hope that was of interest to you. Give you some information in terms of a fitness program for this. We start slow. You start at 20 minutes. You do that on alternate days. And then each week you can increase that by 5 minutes. And I started after my surgery. When we moved out here, I could walk 2 kilometers. Now I can walk 20 kilometers. And so that you can do it. And I don't buy it when people say, I don't have balance, I can't exercise. Wrong, you can. Just get a pair of poles. So thank you, and I hope that was useful. And Kate, you were getting some questions, and I'll be happy to answer those questions.
Yeah. Anyone?
Hi, can you tell me which type of poles are good for like knee injury versus back injury? There's
the best poles are called activator poles. And
Okay.
those are the ones you can get through that Mandy from Urban Polling carries. And they will never break on you. And a place where you can get very good advice and get replacement tips on them in that. His name is Phil Moore. His store, it's called Lady Sport. He has another store in Burnaby called Fit First. And that's with Fortius, a clinic that I started about 5 years ago. And I'm not there anymore because I can't drive anymore. I can't cycle, and with my immune system, I can't go on buses or Canada Lines or whatever. But Phil Moore, he'll look after you there. And the activator pole, those are the strongest, and they're excellent poles.
Do these fold up and fit your suitcase if traveling?
They can fold up, yes. They come in like everybody that gets a pair of activator poles, they all fold up. I don't, because I pound so hard on my right side to keep me up. I kept breaking those with the pins, where the pin holds for your height measurement. But I can go on any bus, I can go on any airplane, I can put them in the car, and mine don't, they're one size for me, and those, these fit in the overhead carriage on a plane, and I've never found, and I did until COVID, I fly around the world on a regular basis, and these poles work fine. But the other ones, which are the standard ones that you would get, fold up to sort of a suitcase size, and you can put them in a suitcase.
Thank you.
Dr. Taunton, I'm sorry for not being visible right now, but I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, you mentioned that you have osteoporosis.
Yes.
Do you have osteoarthritis as a result?
No, I don't. For many people that have osteoarthritis of their knee, they will, because they're not exercising the knee. If you don't use it, you lose it. And what do you lose? Muscle, and then you lose bone. So first comes along the arthritis. If you favor it, you don't exercise it, you don't exercise the muscles around your knee, your bones will get thin and you will get osteoporosis.
No, arthritis.
You will get osteoporosis secondary to the arthritis, because you haven't built up the muscles that support not only the knee joint, if you've got the arthritis in your knee, but you're not straining, putting stress on the bone. And if you don't use it, you lose it. And so the bone gets weak, it gets osteoporotic.
Okay, with all the breaks that you've had to, what's your pain level like currently?
For me, I've got chronic pain.
Okay.
I am at my best when I am walking, but I can't sleep at night. I saw a pain consultant just 2 days ago, trying, because I've gone through all kinds of different pain medications to try to allow me to sleep. I'm sending emails at 3 and 4 in the morning because of, and I've had a complication that's got nothing to do with the surgery. It was with this tooth that broke, and then the bacteria got into my mandible, and then it got into my shoulder, and I got an 80% rotator cuff tear, and it's in my spinal cord. And so by being in my spine and my spinal cord, I get this horrible burning pain in my leg, my thigh, and that leg is incredibly weak. But when I exercise, I am much better. I got much less pain. It's when if I sit for more than 2 hours, I've got now complete loss of my quad muscle, my thigh muscle, and I've got a complete foot drop again. And so on a plane, I have to get up and walk. And I was going to Ottawa because I'm involved in anti-doping for Canada. And it's a flight with tight seats. That's the only way you can get to Ottawa. And so they knew me well because, oh, Dr. T, he will not sit in that seat for more than just to get his lunch. And then he's up walking again. And so yeah, I have chronic pain.
Chronic pain. Would you advocate cannabis for anyone with your type?
Not cannabis. In fact, we just talked about it. I would look at the new CPD. With cannabis, you get too much dopiness and confusion with cannabis with the THC in it. This is the non-THC form called CPD. And we are doing a study. We've now, with this form, it's called, the form is by our company is called Brain CPD. And I've got my Zoom in an hour is with the group that do all the testing to make sure there's no contaminants with the CPD, because they try to extract this from the cannabis plant, and they often use heavy metals like lead. Well, the last thing you want to be consuming is lead. You can get bacteria and fungus and viruses. This is completely free of that, and there's no THC. And for the athlete, it's legal because it's free of sport enhancement drugs, and it's free particularly of THC.
I just wanted to say Kate was trying to say something, and I noticed that the chat is also disabled.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. Christine, can you enable the chat so that people can type their questions?
Okay, Kate, I can't hear you, unfortunately. Your voice is...
Sorry, Jack. Can you hear me now?
No, it's all garbled. Sounds like
So Kate, maybe I can hear Kate. Kate was saying that the chat is disabled, so she was hoping that Christine could disable it. So
enable it.
Or enable it, sorry.
Thanks, Nancy.
I'm sorry, babe. I have it here. And just
It's still disabled.
Can I show you my 2 poles and just tell me roughly what height they should be?
Yeah, well, as I showed you when I stood up,
Yeah.
they should be, and I'll get my poles.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm 6 feet tall.
Okay.
And my pole, there's my iliac crest right there. That's the bone of your hip.
Okay.
That comes all the way around to the front. And that is the height of your pole. And that looks very good for what you've got there.
This one or this one?
That's your left hand, that one.
Oh, okay.
Where's the other one? I can't see it. That's too low.
Okay, so I'm looking here. That's good. That helps me, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So iliac crest, your hip bone is where you want your handles of your poles. And these handles here, which come with the activator poles, are excellent. One thing that you do get, because I grip so hard, particularly on my right side, I've had to have 3 surgeries on my hand because I get big lumps in the tendons, and then I get a trigger finger. And now I've had 3 surgeries on this side, and my daughter has recently, as an orthopedic surgeon, has recently injected this big lump on this side. And normally my finger would get stuck like that, and the only way I could get it out, and that hurts like sting, is that way. But now as she's got that nodule shrunk down with cortisone, I would recommend that you get a good pair of cycling gloves with cushion if you're going to do the kind of walking that I do. I would have good gloves to cushion your grip against the hand holders. And these hand holders, they prevent your hand from slipping down with this lip here. And and for me, I have to keep my arm going straight because of this rotator cuff. And if my arm comes out too far, it will let me know with marked pain.
So the chat box is working. Thank you for everyone's patience. I think we've gone. Are these from Urban Polling? Is this from Samantha that was answered? Then from Grace, Dr. Taunton, could you please show us how to walk with the poles correctly?
Okay, can you, I will get my other pole. So I've got a pair.
Okay.
What I was going to say, meanwhile, if you, I don't know who can hear me or who can't hear me, but I will be offering a learn to pole walk again. Is anybody getting that? I don't know what's
Yes.
happening.
Yes,
We can hear.
we
So
got
just
it.
so people know,
Yeah.
is it better with this microphone?
Yeah, that's better, I think.
Okay, so I will be offering a learn to pole walk coming up. I'm going to take the workshop and then you'll have that option. So
Okay.
we'll figure out, we'll do an online version and then we'll do an in-person version if you're wondering. But learn what you can now, but something is coming to support that. So
Okay, can you
don't
see
worry.
me? Or Christine? Can you see me standing with the poles?
Yes.
Yes.
You can see me. Okay, so I am going to walk by and there. Can you see that?
We can see your arms, Jack, but we can't see your legs.
Yeah.
It's
And
kind of hard unless you'd have to zoom way out, but we can see your upper body nicely.
okay, well, does that help?
No, now we can just see your head.
Yeah.
Okay, then we will go this way.
That's the way.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better?
I think. So.
Okay, there. So my poles are just ahead of my toes.
So you step with the same arm and the same foot.
And so I'm that way. That's right. And I don't care. You see some people carrying their back down here and they're kind of tiddling along, pushing. Well, if you want to get any distance or any power, I can't do that. I have to have my arms almost at 90 degrees. And then I can pound down here because my leg is going to collapse on me. So that I'm there. So
You're out of the phone now, Jack.
leg goes forward, the pole goes with it. So the pole is opposite my right foot to hold me up because it's going to collapse. And then I bring the other foot forward and I keep my poles upright so that it gives me the power and the balance, particularly when I'm climbing hills.
What about going downstairs, like walking downstairs with poles? How do you do that?
How do I do that? As I'm walking down, I put, for my right leg, I put my pole down first, down the stair, and then my right leg comes down. Then I bring the other leg down. So I lead with my weak leg and it's got the pole with it. And then go down.
So like a cane then?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, very much. I can remember using canes like when I had polio and they were a pain in the butt, but that's what they had. It would have been so much easier with poles. And so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody that comes through neurology or spine at VGH, you'll get poles right away. So I hope that was useful for you, and keep safe. And Kate and Christine have got it taped, and if there's anything that you missed, hopefully you can see that there.
Yes. A few more. There are a number of YouTube videos on how to, pole walk. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, right? That would be okay to check out.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Kate's
Then
offering.
there's some of them under urban polling, they have done lots of filming of me walking because I am so different than most. I'm, really quite disabled. But to walk, I'll dare most people to come and go for a walk with me and try and stay with me.
Stay with you.
I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I will send out some links for everybody. so that you'll have that option. That'll be helpful. I'll send out the link also for Phil's 2 shops, Fit First and the Lady Sport. And I will send out the urban polling link, and then I'll let you know what's happening in terms of the how we can get together and try some polling together. I'm going to see if we can get some polls on loan. I can't guarantee that, but I'm going to try. We've been lucky a couple times in the past. It might be difficult with COVID going on. So
from urban polling will come out and give demonstrations and so on.
Yeah, I'm going to take the cert, Jack, and then it'll just be easier for our group.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just
Tell her to give you a pair and then use that as an incentive and have a drop prize for a pair of poles.
Yeah. Well, we have a pair that we're going to draw today, actually. So that's awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you, everybody else.
Thank you, Jack.
Good.
Thank you,
Well, all the best.
everyone. Got the chat working.
For Christine, thank you and Kate for getting it all set up. And we'll be on to another topic with Christine. She's always interested in the research that we're doing. I still do. I've done 30 years of research with the Nike Shoe Company, and we just analyzed another shoe. The last one we finished in November last year, and 300 people testing the shoes, 3 different shoes. And this one shoe reduces running injuries by 52%, which is 20% more reduction than any other shoe company that you could possibly name.
Sounds like another workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's called the Infinity React.
Yeah.
So thank you all.
Thank you.
And all the best.
Yes.
All right, peeps, we're going to do our draw.
Use your mask.
Oh yeah, the draw.
Yeah.
We're going to do
The draw.
Yes.
Bye now.
You ready?
Oh.
So what I did is there are some people's names that weren't in the draw that I saw attending here, so I've included those, and I'm going to shake them. I cut them all out. I'm going to shake the bag. You're just going to have to.
Good luck for somebody.
Thanks, Jack. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yay.
Now, some people have had to say goodbye, but here we go.
I want to stay here if that's.
Yeah, 2 seconds. Here it is. Whoops, that's two names. Just a sec.
This is so exciting.
And the winner is Georgina.
Georgina.
Georgina, do you want to put your camera on? You just won the polls.
Yay.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Hi, Georgina. You've won the polls. So I will connect with you because Urban Polls is going to send them directly to your house so that we don't have to have contact. So I have your email. You will hear from me and you will have a pair of polls.
That's
And
great.
so thank you everybody for participating and for joining us. I know that I will let you know what's happening with those links and what we're going to do next. And now I'll just pass it back to Christine.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Congratulations. You inspired me as well. And I look forward to another one. And Kate, thanks so much for your help. And everyone stay healthy and safe. And I will be sending this presentation. It's going to be edited. So I'll be sending a copy to you, Kate, and then you
And I'll put it out to everybody.
Yes.
But the links will come, if not in the next little bit, right after tomorrow. So I'll find them, send them, and then you'll have that. And Georgina, you don't worry, I will get I need your address and stuff. You'll get an email from me.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if either one of you would know. He didn't say anything about there's a lot of poles out there with wrist straps and his didn't have them. So are they okay? Bill?
What I would say, do you already have poles with wrist straps? Yeah, if you already have them, let me double check with urban polling. The thing with the urban polls is they're all evidence-based development. What I've heard in the past about wrist straps is they just increase your risk in terms of if you trip that you're attached. So I don't think that you actually have to use the band, right? You don't have to have it around your wrist. But let me ask the question. I'll put it out there.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone.
Thank you.
There. Okay. Pull
welcome.
away.
Oh, yeah, Paul walking away. I mean, we'll talk about it another time. I'll send you the info.
And there was one other question someone asked, like, should you start using them before you need them?
I Well, sorry to interrupt. I do. I mean, I'm not injured. It's a blessing, but I use the poles in any event. I have the the ones from Urban Polling, and just to answer, I use them, but
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
They are not necessarily therapeutic. They can be therapeutic, but they actually really increase your core engagement when you use them. So a lot of people use them just as a great activity. They help you with posture. There are many, many, many benefits to using poles that go beyond their therapeutic value. So absolutely get out there and pole away, especially with how much we have to be apart. The key now is to figure out how we can be together as a community outside, healthy, with masks and polling, so that we can sort of keep that up, because it looks like we're going to be stuck with this darn pandemic for a while.
And the one thing I found with wearing a Fitbit and pole walking, it classifies it as an elliptical.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Exercise.
interesting.
That is cool.
It's the same kind of movement.
Yeah.
So,
And it would count, especially if you were doing it with a pedometer. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably still put it on your hip, but depending on if you're using an accelerometer as opposed to a pedometer, the way that it'll record those steps there'll be variation, but it's a great way to get activity.
Oh, I love the tip. I love it. Thank you. Yeah.
So maybe I'll see if I can get us pedometers too. Well, we can see if we can catch up to Jack with all his miles.
and now with the slipperiness with leaves, it's actually is better to have those wide things. Like mine are too small, and I'm going to have to go down to Lady Sport to get the bigger ones, because it gives more stability without slipping out.
A little bit more of a pad on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So thank you for this.
thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so happy pole walking.
Yeah. Any more questions, or are we good?
Yeah.
You have a question, Rick? No, you're saying you're good? Okay, bye-bye. All
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Hi, Kate. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I would say those feet are when I bought my poles, they're made of titanium.
Yeah.
And so they were $100 US.
Yeah.
And I had them put those feet on because I knew I was going to be trying to walk on the beach.
Yeah.
And that keeps it. And then there's a little ring that the pole doesn't go in as far with that ring, like on a ski pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have those here too, with those there's a little bit of a collar around it so it doesn't sink in, right?
Yeah.
Great.
And I always use the straps, because if you lose your concentration or something, you don't drop your pole.
That's true.
It's still hanging on you, and you can just keep going. Especially if I'm only on one leg, and it's not that easy sometimes, depending on which one I drop.
Yeah.
Whether I can pick it up very easily. Anyway, it was interesting. I'm glad I checked it out, and I can probably walk 3 times longer or further with the poles than without on my prosthesis. So I'm thinking that my osteoporosis in my stump leg is maybe getting a little better because I'm doing medication for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have to work up to that level, Sharon? Did you start with a little bit and then you did the add-on method of a few more minutes and a few more minutes?
No. I just got on a bike path, and I walked and walked and walked. And when I first did it, however, I made a blister on my stump.
Yeah.
So I soon found out, just because I want to do it, I better not.
Yeah. Sometimes just because we can doesn't mean we should. Pace is always a good thing to have. It's nice when your body has a good time when it's out exercising. I'm a big believer in we better have some fun in there, or it's hard to get motivated. So
yeah, I ended up with a big blister on my stump.
Kate, I've got one simple question. It may sound silly, but my
Nothing silly.
poles have got like, it looks like a shoe, kind of those things, like, and it's kind of,
Oh, yep. Yep, those little, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah, I know the kind you mean. Yep.
yeah. So should I be using that or just the round one?
I
No,
think
use
that
the
I will be
shoe.
able to give you a really good answer after I take that pole walking certification.
The shoe is the best, Kate. The shoe
I
is
think
the best.
the shoe is good, but I think the other ones also, depending on how much osteoarthritis you have in your knees, there are different
Yeah.
tips. So I am taking the cert. I'm finishing my Pilates cert, but that I'm not very far away from that. So I will do the pole walking one immediately. And I will say that I will do it before Christmas. So we'll try and get a walk in before then. And so I'm ready to go in the new year. If I say it out loud, then I will have to do it.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Well,
All
we
right.
get a lot of snow here, and I can walk in snow, but I refuse to try to walk on ice.
Okay, well, I think that's very good. You know,
Yeah.
when you think that you're on one leg really with a prosthetic, come on.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks for showing me this guy that has done it all. It sounds like.
Oh, yeah, he really has.
Yeah.
We're really lucky to have him. He's
Oh, yeah.
a national treasure, but he's also a Vancouver treasure that we feel really blessed to have, especially since he's so generous with his time with our group. So lucky us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Goodbye. Thank you.
Anyway, see ya.
Okay.
Bye.
See you tomorrow, Cass. Your Zoom invite for tomorrow is on its way shortly. Bye.